Hello YouTube, Master None coming back at you. Got a little video here. Been seeing a lot of Nagant Revolver disassembly videos and just wasn't satisfied with them. This is going to be the 100% complete disassembly of your 1895 Nagant Revolver. First things first, check that your firearm is unloaded, no ammunition. As you can see, all 7 spots are empty. And while you have your loading gate down, what you want to do is you want to pull the ejector rod straight forward into that position and then rotate, in this case away from me, toward you. And you just want to line up the groove on the ejector rod to where it's out of the way of the cylinder spindle. And that should just slide right out. If you got a stiff one, get a little wedge underneath there, pry it up, pop it out. Set that off to the side for now. At this point, your cylinder will be able to be removed. Set your frame and your firearm off to the side. As you notice, this piece will plunge down. If you push it down, rotate, it will come out. Get that on camera for you. You just rotate, and there are a couple of divots, a couple of pins, you can see it right there, that line up with the divot on there. And your spring stays together with that. If you want to keep it straight, set that off to the side. And then what's next is your ejector rod. This is where your tools come in. You need a screwdriver with a wide bit and a screwdriver with a narrow bit. At this point you will need the narrow bit. And just rotate this back to the down position, and this screw that you see right here is the one you're going to be removing. It's a very short screw, very small, so if you got a magnetic bowl, that'd be a good place to put that. And then you will take away the retainer for the ejector rod. And that will go off to the side as well. At this point, your ejector rod will come out all at once. It's one piece of steel. Set that off to the side with your other goodies. Next step is you use the same one it's the same screwdriver you just used, and this screw here, the lower screw, the loading gate spring screw, is the one that will be coming out. And you just loosen that up. There's going to be a fair bit of tension at first, but once you get it loosened up, it'll come right out. Set that off to the side. At this point, your spring will come out, and you just flip over, and there it is. Next, your loading gate. Mine is modified, as you can see. It just kind of flips freely now. What you want to do is use that same screwdriver and then just take that screw out. And all these screws actually have different lengths and pattern sizes for the threads, so it's really hard to get them mixed up. Anyway, your loading gate comes off just like that. Your screw, what I like to do is put it right back in the loading gate, thread it through, because the fore end of the loading gate is actually threaded. So set that off to the side, and then what you want to do is switch to your bigger screwdriver, and this screw here is the one that's going to be coming out. So take that, and then take that, put it off to the side, grab both sides of your grips, flip your handgun over, and in most cases your side plate should come right off. That's your side plate. If it's too stiff, what you can do is, there's a way to do it. You can either hit it on a block of wood like this, or you can tap the back of it here, right here, and it'll pop right off. Next thing you want to do is remove that screw right there. That's your trigger guard housing. That keeps your mainspring from snapping out. Use your wide screw for that, or wide screwdriver for that. And there's usually a fair bit of torque put down on that, at least on mine. And once you get just past the head of it, I think it is right there, you'll notice the trigger guard will swing free. So what you do, you swing it, you lift it straight up, and you set it off to the side. Your next step is to get the mainspring out. That's where the pliers come in. Now, you can use padded pliers, you can use any kind of vice grips, any pliers, anything you want, just as long as you get a good grip. Where you're going to be gripping it is right there. And you want to get down pressure on it and then squeeze it. And you lift straight up and then out a little bit. And then gently release it off to the side. Next, it's kind of a lay-in. The pieces all kind of lay together. So what you're going to do is you rotate your hammer all the way to the rear as far as you can. Oh, my mistake. Yep. You're going to rotate it all the way to the rear as far as you can until it connects with the sear on the trigger. Lift it straight up, and it's out of the way. Now, you can take that little screw out of there, but there's a little leaf spring and this little piece right here will come out. I haven't had a need to take it out, and you can also, there's a pin that you can see right there. That's for your firing pin. Again, I haven't seen a need to take that out, so set that off to the side. Next step will be the cylinder piece. This little piece sits right in here. Sits right in there, just like that. See if I can get an angle on it. There you go. That piece, just bring it, rotate it back. The hammer, the trigger should be forward, and then lift it straight out. Set it off to the side. Next step, your trigger will come out, just like that. Lift straight up, straight out. Off to the side. Next thing that's going to come out is the hammer block, which is this piece here. Remember how it's oriented. The bevel will go toward the front of the gun. Basically, this flat here that you see is slightly polished for my gun. It goes toward the muzzle. And then the next piece that's going to come out is, you're basically just going to flip your gun back, and this little piece that comes out, rotate it as far back as you can, give it a little wiggle, or flip it and tap it, and that comes right out. That's your recoil plug. That keeps the shell from coming back at you when you fire the gun. Alright, and at this point, you're pretty much fully disassembled. You can go and you can take the small screwdriver and take the screw out of the grips, if you so choose it, to really deep clean. If you want to soak them in some acetone, get rid of all that cosmoline crap out of there, by all means do so. I did. It worked pretty well. At this point, if you wanted to do a deep clean, you absolutely could, and the great part about it is you can clean from the breech end if you wanted to clean the barrel out really good. On these little short ones it doesn't really matter that much. Mine's well oiled. Also, if you needed to, take out the, you notice mine doesn't have the lanyard ring anymore. I took mine off, but what you can do is grab it with your pliers and just give it a quick rotation and it should come right out. This one's been a little stiff, but if you really wanted to, you can take this out. There's also another piece in there. The grip, the butt cap retainer screw is in there, and I haven't taken mine out yet. I don't really plan on it because I don't see a need, unless I'm going to modify the grip in some way, but it's just a plate screw. Anyway, go ahead and start getting this put back together. It's not that difficult. One thing you could do, I've seen it done before and it's actually a really good practice. You take any camera or camera phone and you snap a picture of the gun right before you disassemble it, and then for each step of the disassembly process you take another picture. So you'd basically start off with the way we started, flipping the loading gate open. That's your first step, and then the next step is cylinder's gone, and then so on and so forth. And then when you get to here, you can take out one piece at a time, snap a picture, one piece at a time, snap a picture. Well, time to start to reassemble this. And the last piece that came out, as you remember, was the firing pin block. There are two sides to it. This side has a wide hole. This one has a narrow one. The narrow goes toward the front of the gun, and you're going to replace it right on this pin here, if you can see that. I apologize about the lighting. Anyway, you'll see the pin. It's right up against the back of the frame. You drop that on there, let it flip forward. Your next one is going to be your hammer block, and I actually polished mine just to reduce some of the wear. Anyway, there's a groove that it actually fits into. You can kind of see it right there, but you basically just put it up there as far as it'll go, and then it'll snap into place and it'll go all the way up. Alright, next is the trigger. And a quick note, see if I can really get you zoomed in on this. Okay, as you can see, I have modified my trigger because my belief is standard issue is insufficient. What I've done is I've polished this surface here, I've polished that surface there, I've polished underside here, basically all the contacting surfaces. Anything that will contact any other thing inside the trigger, I have polished it. I've got a couple other pieces I've polished, but go ahead and drop this in just like that. Pretty much just like that. Now, when you drop that in, you want to make sure it interfaces with the hammer block in such a way that when you push the trigger up, or when you push the trigger to the rear, it pushes the hammer block up and the firing pin block to the forward position, and then because there's a groove that it latches with. The next one is the cylinder piece. Not real difficult. The hook hooks toward the front of the gun. You want to bring your trigger all the way to the up position. Drop the piece up into that. Kind of fidget it. There we go. Fidget it around a little bit. Alright. And this is the important part. There it is. Let me show you the close-up of this. This is your hammer and whatnot. I have polished that surface there. I have polished, I'll call that the toe. I have also polished those surfaces there. I've considerably lightened the trigger pull on this. I believe factory it's like 12 pounds. Double action. Single action is about 8. I think I'm down to about 9 and 6. Haven't really gotten anything on it to measure it for sure, but anyway, when you put this one back in, you'll have to bring your trigger all the way to the rear. That way you can drop this straight down just like that, and then when you pull this forward, this should not go. When you pull it to the back, your hammer should fall straight down. That'll be your test right there, basically. Alright, your next one is going to be your spring, and again, I have done some polishing on this. See if I can show you real quick. You see the surface on that is polished as well as on the tang of it, and I've also polished the underside of this part. Anyway, you want to grip it just like this. It helps it put it on the surface. Clamp it just like that. And the first thing you're going to want to do is start this side of it, and then you want to make sure you get it in. I'll show you that real quick. That little hole right there is where that button goes. So you want to start off by hooking it under the trigger and the hammer, and then drop it into that, and then give it a push to make sure it's fully seated. And then you can just do a quick function test. Just put your finger on that. That's exactly what you want right there. Alright. Next step is the trigger guard, which I haven't actually done any polishing on this. No real need to. You just hook it over that, and then you bring it forward, and you push against the frame, and then you switch the screwdriver bits. You just give it a little bit of tension, and then once it gets there in the groove, once it gets past the shoulder of the screw, it'll be there in the right spot. Alright, next step is the side plate. Again, just slides right down on it. It takes some fidgeting, mine usually does, but you line it up nicely, and then this is the screw that you want. I'll show you. That's the screw that you want. It's got a slightly rounded head, straight slot of course, and about the bottom third, almost the bottom half, is threads, and it's a slightly bigger diameter screw. It should thread perfectly. If you have to force anything on this, stop and try again with something else. Then you just get that on there, and then that should be about as tight as you need it. And then you just function test to make sure nothing is hung up. I usually do about 4 or 5 shots for both double and single action. Alright, your next step is going to be the loading gate, which if you took my tip and put the screw with the loading gate, you shouldn't have any problem locating where that screw is. You always want to remember, that this little tab, that little tab you see right there, is going to go toward the front of the gun, just like that. And then just fidget it around a little bit until it, there you go, let you pop it into place. Small screwdriver this time. Don't cross the threads, and don't over tighten it. Just, that's all you need. It should swing freely at this point. Alright, leave it in the up position. Take your spring, and you'll notice a little slot, little spot right there, a little ledge that is going to go down. So this is basically going to sit just like that. And then you take this screw here. It's got a larger diameter than the one you have left. I believe you have one left. Just drop that in there and start it by hand. And this one you actually do want kind of tight, because you'll notice the spring will push up on the loading gate the tighter you pull this down. And that'll give you your tension on that. Okay, now you want to move this to the down position. And the first thing I do most of the time is I swing this off to the side just a little bit to where it's just slightly hanging out, and there's a groove. See if I can get that to show up. Yep, there's a groove as well as a slot in the side. That is where it locks. Not that you really need it, but it's important. You want to line that up with the slot that you see right there. That's just going to line up. Mine's actually magnetized now for some reason. Apologies. Throw your cylinder back in first. Sorry about that. Throw your cylinder back together first. I got a little ahead of myself. Basically, line up the little button and that divot I showed you before. Just give it a little rotation. And then you're going to have to depress the center of the cylinder and then just rotate it toward the up position when you're looking at the right side of the gun. Rotate it up so it locks, and then rotate this collar to where you can actually see where it lines up, and this piece should just slip right in. Should not have to force it. If you have to force it, something's jacked up. There we go. And then put that piece back down to where it's in line with the cylinder and the bore. And then this is where your groove is going to go out. And you want to make sure it's lined up. It should just drop right in. You want to go about halfway, about like that. And then you take this retainer. See the tab sticking off of it? The tab right there. That's what locks that in place. You just drop that on there. Take your tiny little bitty itty bitty screw, the only one you have left. That guy right there. Drop him in there, and I've got fat fingers, so it doesn't work for me to try to thread it by hand. Just make sure you're not crossing it, and then just snug it down, because those screws will strip out. And then you just push that all the way in, give it a rotate, same spot, or same way as the cylinder, and then close your gate. And there you have it. Give it another function test. And she seems to be working just fine. If you got any questions, need me to explain something a little more, curious about my setup here, either ask me or check out one of my other videos, and Don't be shy. Like the page. Subscribe. More videos to come. See you next time, guys.